Well, first, we'd like to welcome back Trevor. Not sure what's going on down in Indianapolis, but
We're the ones getting rain and thunder, and he's the one whose
I
power's
know.
going out and it's perfectly sun.
Seriously.
It's still out. I'm on my hotspot.
Look at you. Look at you.
We'll see. Apparently it's stuff's happening all across the city at certain areas. Like in my wife's where she works, their power went out. Like one of the restaurants around them, their power went out. I don't know if it's the heat. I don't know if
some rolling blackouts in old Indianapolis there.
Bro.
Unofficial rolling blackouts is what's going on.
It's rolling right now. You're looking good. I don't want to jinx it. You're looking good. So we'll attempt to just shove forward here. And go ahead, Brian. You have something?
Nope.
Okay. So this portion of the show is we are going to dive into the top 10 running back rooms across the country. So it's not just the backs anymore. We're not just going to take the top 10 backs and then just say where they came from and then put them on a list. Like that's not how this works. They actually, Brian and Trevor put these lists together by actually going through and looking at the depth of those rooms, the talent in those rooms, and then put together a top 10 list. And so I'm kind of excited to see where this thing's going to go. And so we're going to do it similar to the way we did it before.
And so it's not who has the most yards.
Right.
People get otherwise easy. It's just take the top 10 Power 5 rushers and just rank them 1 through 10 and how many yards they had. It's about your effectiveness, your dominance. And the way we looked at it is it's because it's like, okay, well, this guy averaged 5.3 yards per carry. I could use that as a statistic to back up a belief, but it may not be good context. So let's say I'm wrong about Mekhi Hughes and I'm talking about his 5.3 yards per carry. Say, well, yeah, but the Tulane O-line wasn't as good as it was under Tajay. I keep wanting to say Tajay Sharp, but it's Spears because Tajay Sharp's the kid that played receiver at UMass against Notre Dame back in 2015. But Tajay Spears, well, he played behind a better O-line. Well, maybe that's true. But the way that we look at this, looking at the stats, breaking the film down, it's if they all played behind the same offensive line in the same, like the same system, trying to look at it as objectively as possible. It's not just a raw number standpoint, but what is your talent? What is your production? Do they produce? Do they do things in different ways? Do they play well in big moments? All that type of stuff factors into this, into what constitutes a top room, as opposed to, like you said, Vince, just taking the top 10 running backs. Like they do this with quarterback, especially. Or the top quarterback rooms, and then they rank them. It's like 1 through 10 of who they think the top quarterbacks are.
Right.
It's not really about the room. We're trying to make it about the room, the unit as a whole is what we're going to dive into. And so, Trevor, I'll let you start off. I'll do your 10 through 6, then I'll do mine, and then we'll go 5 through 1.
Yeah, so 10 through 6 was the harder one for me to kind of order in my list because there was a lot of teams that I felt could have gotten that number 10 spot. Man, it is up for debate. And that one, I think we're going to dive a little bit more into when we talk about teams that were left out of my list specifically. But at number 10 for me, I'm still going to go with Pitt. Now, I did mention when we went through the top 5 players list, Desmond Reed does carry a lot of the weight of what Pittsburgh's running back room is. But if you look at who all they have in total, they have Desmond Reed returning from last year. They also have Jules Goff coming back from last season. He only played in 3 games, played in 93 snaps, no stats to kind of write home about. One player that is interesting because of how Pittsburgh uses their running backs and how much they like to get them involved in the passing game. Because remember, Desmond Reed, 52 receptions, 579 yards, 11.1 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns last year as a running back. They brought in Justin Cook, who is actually a wide receiver at the D2 level. And they brought him in the transfer portal. Now he's 5'10", he's 180 pounds, but he is listed as a running back for Pitt. But over 3 seasons at the D2 level, 73 receptions, 965 yards, 13.2 yards per catch, 5 touchdowns. He is also a very dangerous returner. 1,600 return yards and 3 touchdowns in that same time span at that D2 school. I believe he went to East Stroudsburg. It's where he was a wide receiver at. And so what did those numbers tell me? I'm using a lot of projection here with this kid. I'm not saying he's going to end up being a top 5 back. Desmond Reed is still going to carry the weight of that running back room. But that tells me that this Justin Cook kid is dangerous with the ball in his hands. He's somebody that can make plays in the open space, and with how much Pittsburgh likes to utilize their running backs in the pass game, I think he could kind of elevate this room as a whole on top of what Desmond Reed is able to do with this group as well. But if somebody wants to argue another team for 10, I totally understand that completely. And so
there's a lot of good units. I mean, like Trev, at the bottom of this list, it's like, I don't agree with your take here, but it's like you could find holes in a lot of these different rooms, and then also things that are really good about all these rooms too. My issue with Pitt was I just don't see anything other than Desmond Reed that I know. Whereas like there's other running back rooms that I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe they don't have a Desmond Reed, but their number 2 and their number 3 is better.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. The number 9 team on my list is Minnesota, team from the Big Ten. Now, heading into this season, they returned Darius Taylor from 2024. Now, it's not just him that makes this room interesting. What makes them interesting to me is some of their portal additions. Now, they added A.J. Taylor from the transfer portal. They also added a running back from Washington, Cam Davis. I'll get to him in a second. But Darius Taylor last year, he has 15 career starts. He played over 500 snaps last year. He rushed for 986 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns. Now, here's the rub. He did it on 205 carries, averaged 4.8 yards per carry. I wouldn't call him a receiving threat necessarily out of the backfield in the same light that I would talk about a Desmond Reed or a Nicholas Singleton, but he was productive out of the backfield. 54 receptions, 350 receiving yards, 6.5 yards per catch, 2 receiving touchdowns. It also sounds like my power kicked back on. Thank goodness. So there we go. But Darius Taylor, he kind of spearheads this running back room. Now, where it gets interesting is who they added in the portal. A.J. Turner from Marshall, 8 career starts, rushed for 864 yards last year, 8.3 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns. He was number 2 in the country in yards per carry last season at 8.3 of running backs of over 50 carries. He was an impressive back last year. He was. Now, the third guy, little bit of projection here, but Cam Davis, he transferred in from Washington. Limited carries in 2024 because he was coming back from a patellar tendon injury he suffered in 2023. Last year, he only had 44 carries for $190. But in 2022, he was kind of their short yardage back, their goal line type of running back, 107 attempts, 522 yards, 4.9 yards per carry, 13 rushing touchdowns in 2022 for Cam Davis. And so that was a really good addition by them. Number 8 for me is Georgia. Now, Georgia's in a spot where I'm, again, using a little projection here, but they need their running back room to return to what it was when they were more efficient on the ground. Now, even in the years where they were winning national championships, Georgia didn't have an 1,000-yard running back. So I'm not projecting a guy like Nate Frazier to have a 1,200-yard season. But as a true freshman last season, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, was Nate Frazier a true freshman last year? Okay.
Yep.
As a true freshman, played in 13 games, started 3 of them when Trevor Etienne was hurt, and he ended up leading the team, being the team's leading rusher outside of, I believe, rushing touchdowns, because I think Trevor Etienne had 1 more. But 133 attempts, 671 yards, 5.0 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Not too effective as a receiver. They just didn't use him that way.
Yeah, it was about usage, not so much they can't do it. It's just they didn't use him that way.
Exactly. Now,
they had a guy for that.
Yes.
Which leads to the effectiveness of their room.
Mm-hmm. Now, another portal addition that I like here, Josh McCray. They picked him up from Illinois. He played in all 13 games last year. He had 117 attempts, 609 yards, averaged 5.2 yards per carry, had 10 rushing touchdowns, also added a receiving touchdown to that. So 11 total touchdowns last year, adds to the depth in that room, as well as Cash Jones. He is more of their receiving back, going back to the usage of their room. Cash Jones only had 27 rushing yards last year, 1 rushing touchdown, but they had 275 receiving yards, averaged 11.5 yards per catch, 4 receiving touchdowns, including Georgia's only touchdown in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. At number 7, I have Texas. They return Quintravian Wisner. They get C.J. Baxter back from injury, and then they also have Jarrett Gibson kind of rounding out the bottom of that room. Now, Wisner, he had 12 starts last year, played in 15 games for Texas. He was an 1,000-yard back, but he did it off of 226 carries, 4.7 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns. As a receiver, 311 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Now, what kind of drives a lot of interest for me from this room is the return of CJ Baxter. He didn't play a snap in 2024. He was injured, but he played in 13 games as a true freshman. He started 6 of them. 4.8 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns, 659 rushing yards. He is somebody that if he can kind of replace Jadon Blue in their running back rotation, Texas is kind of a team that has the most room to fall, I believe, on this list for me, because a lot is riding on the return of CJ Baxter for the room as a whole. Contravion Wisner is a good college running back.
He not only has to return, he has to return and be better than he was before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk more about that when I get to my breakdown of Texas, because you even have him higher than I do.
Yep. And but a lot is riding on CJ Baxter projecting to being a better running back than what he was as a true freshman, and that's coming off of an injury. A lot of questions there. And then, like I said, Jarrett Gibson rounds out the bottom of that group. He was the team's 3rd leading rusher last season. He had 377 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. He played in 15 games last season for the Longhorns. And then rounding out my 6 through 10, I have Oregon. They returned Noah Whittingham. They added Mekhi Hughes, who's been a hot topic of conversation so far in this segment. They picked him up from Tulane, and they also bring back DeJuan Riggs, who only played in 2 games last season. But I like Noah Whittingham. He kind of was in the shadow of Jordan James last year, but he played in all 14 games. He had 540 rushing yards, averaged 4.6 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns. Then he also added 308 yards through the air and then 2 receiving touchdowns as well. Mekhi Hughes is somebody that has gained a lot of offseason attention. 23 career starts. He rushed for 1,400 yards last year, 15 rushing touchdowns, but his efficiency as a runner isn't fantastic. It's 5.3 yards per carry. It's not horrible. I mean, I have other players on this list that are below 5 yards a carry, but based on where he was coming from, not the most yards per carry that he could have had, but he is returning the most rushing yards in college football since 2023 amongst returning players. He has 2,766 rushing yards as a returning player in college football. So carries some weight for me as well there. So that is my 6 through 10.
I've got Georgia as my number 10 room in the country. This is one that when I started my analysis, I did not anticipate having Georgia in my top 10. And the reason why is because their room wasn't very good last year. Part of that, though, was the line. They had a lot of injuries up front in the line that really limited their effectiveness. I don't think their run game was schemed very well. And when your line's not blocking and your quarterback is zero threat to kind of take some of the pressure off, I think that's going to hurt your ability to show off your ability. And I had to kind of get past some of that a little bit in order to feel better about this room. But number one, it starts for me. You mentioned Nate Frazier. That's where it starts for me. As a true freshman last year, 671 yards, 5.1 per carry, 8 touchdown. I think he's a good football player, guys. I really do. I mean, you look at how he performed last season. I thought he was good against Texas in the SEC title game on 11 carries, had a touchdown. He had the only I think he only had the only big run that they had against Notre Dame. He had 4 carries for 37 yards against Notre Dame last season. They didn't use him a whole lot in the pass game. That doesn't bother me a whole lot, but I think Nate Frazier is going to really have a big year for Georgia. I think the talent's there. I think their line is going to be better, and I think he's a really good football player, and he was a really good high school player. You look at the rest of their lineup. You talk about the running back that they got in the portal from Illinois, gives you a really nice number 2 in Josh McCray, kid who had 609 yards, 10 touchdowns last year, also caught 13 passes. And then you get Roderick Robinson back, who gives you a really impactful back. Only carried it 24 times last year, but he did average 8.2 yards per carry. And then you've got your third down specialist, kind of like their Aeneas Williams. He doesn't run it as well as Aeneas, but very impactful player in the pass game of Cash Jones. And that's not all. They got a couple other kids that were pretty highly ranked coming out of high school too. I think this backfield is better than maybe some of us give it credit for, certainly than I gave it credit for as I went into this process. I definitely did not think Georgia was going to be on my list when I started breaking it all down, but I really think Nate Frazier is going to have a breakout. McCray pickup was good, excuse me. And I like the depth of the line. The success from a number standpoint is going to be dependent upon how the line plays. But I think if you put this room behind like a Notre Dame, behind a Texas A&M line, behind a Miami line, there's no doubt that they'd be productive. And this is one of those ones for me that is a definite projection of what I think they're going to be than it is an argument for what they've done. And that's just kind of where I am. So I'm kind of hedging my bet a little bit and going with the Bulldogs on this one. Next up on my list is Texas. Look, I think Texas has a good running back room. If you have one of the 10 best rooms in college football, you've got a good running back room. And so it's like saying, like with Mekhi Hughes, by saying Mekhi Hughes is not a top 5 running back, that's not me saying he stinks. It's me saying I don't think he's as good as other running backs. And he still is a good back. And that's how I feel about the Texas backfield. I think it's an overrated backfield nationally. You see people talking about their running back room as like top 2, like 3 or 4, like right behind Notre Dame. And I just don't see it, guys. I mean, you look last year, Wisner averaged 4.7 yards a carry. Jarrett Gibson comes back at 4.83 yards a carry. Now, that was freshman year, and I expect him to get better. But, and he did have a really good game against Florida when Wisner got banged up and got hurt. He had 4 carries for 0 yards that game before he got knocked out. And then Jarrett Gibson comes into the game, rushes for 100 yards on 16 carries. And so he's a guy that had 377 yards last year, and he did some things, didn't do a whole lot out of the pass game, only caught 3 passes. And then everybody talks about C.J. Baxter, and I think C.J. Baxter's a good back. But, again, this is a kid as a true freshman, talented player, rushed for 659 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's good production, right? Had 24 catches for 156 yards. Only averaged 4.78 yards per carry. I mean, there comes a point in time where your production is more about just your opportunity than it is your actual overall effectiveness. And I'm someone who puts a lot of value in what you do in big games, but then also what you do in, from a consistency basis. Well, with Gibson or Baxter, that can be a little difficult because I actually thought he did have some pretty big moments as a freshman. Had 9 carries for 64 yards and a touchdown, had a big long run against Washington in the semifinal game, and had a nice performance against Kansas in the regular season. And then there's some other times he didn't. So it's a projection, and also he's coming back from a pretty significant knee injury. And I just think the other 2 backs are good backs, but not great backs. It's really, and none of their 3 backs are sniffing the top 10 for me. I don't care what anybody. I see Wisner in top 10 running back lists, and I'm thinking that's just because he plays at Texas. That's the only reason you have him there. He's a nice, solid back, but he's not what people make him out to be. This is a good room, but that's it. And, Trevor, I think you nailed something. If there's any group in here that I predict to get bumped out during the season, it's Texas. And not that it's a bad group, but just that's where I won't be shocked if by the end of the year we're like, dude, you should have had Miami's room over Texas's room. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I should have. Or even in their league, you should have had Florida's room over their room. Some things along those lines. Number 8 for me is Oregon. Trev, you said a lot of it. I like Mekhi Hughes. I think he's going to fit that system very well. He'll be running behind a better line. He'll have a pass game that's going to take a lot more pressure off of him. I have no doubt that Mekhi Hughes is going to produce this year at Oregon if he's healthy. And then also with Noah Whittington, good, solid number 2 back. 8 was a tough one for me. I could see Oregon maybe fading back a little bit. I think it's a good room. I think it's going to produce because of the system. I don't know that it's a room that has a lot of room for growth. Other from a production standpoint, it'll from an effectiveness standpoint, I think they'll get a lot of hype. They'll get a lot of love because it's Oregon, but I just don't see it as a room that is a really high impact group for me. Number 7 is Oklahoma. This is one of the ones that we had differently, Trev. So you had Pitt. I had Oklahoma. I believe this is the only one that we had different. This is the only one that I had in that you did not have in. I really like this Oklahoma room. And the only reason that I have any pause whatsoever about having them in here is because I still don't know how I feel about the Oklahoma offensive line. But as we said, it's about if you put them behind the same line, where would they be? And when I look at this room, guys, I see a backfield that has a lot of talent. And part of this, too, is I'm a huge Jade Knott guy. And I know his numbers last year at Cal were not good. 385 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, 24 catches for 222 yards and a touchdown. On the season at Cal, 140 touches, 607 yards, 4.3 per carry or per touch, and 5 touchdowns. And you're thinking, hold on a second, that's the lead running back for the number 7 running back room in the country? Yes. Because if you look at what he did before, he was banged up a lot last year, and the Cal running back, or the Cal O-line stunk. As a sophomore at Cal, he ran 246 times for 1,315 yards, 5.4 per carry, 12 touchdowns. Into the season with 1,484 total yards, 5.5 per touch, 11 touchdowns. As a true freshman, we remember Notre Dame facing him. 897 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, had 321 receiving yards, had 1,218 yards, 5.6 per touch, and 11 touchdowns as a freshman at Cal in 2022. He's going to have a better supporting cast around him, and he's going to have a quarterback that does for him what Riley Leonard did for the Notre Dame running backs last year, where you can't just focus on Jaden Ott. Otherwise, John Mateer is going to rip you up. But I also like their depth. I think Javante Barnes is a good number 2 running back, averaged 4.7 yards per carry last year behind a really not very good offensive line. And they had 2 really talented freshmen last year that I think are poised to have big jumps this year. That's Xavier Robinson, who Notre Dame fans should remember. Notre Dame offered him late in the process in 2020 in the 2024 class. Big old back out of Oklahoma, ended up going to Oklahoma. Cowboys thought they were going to get him for a while. He ends up picking the rival Sooners. He had 233 yards last year. Taylor Tatum was a big-time 5-star running back coming out of high school. I don't care about that. I care about the talent. I think he's talented. He ran for 278 and 5 yards a carry last year. And they did that behind a pretty bad offensive line. So when you look at the overall production, despite all the struggles, this is a 4-man group that had almost 2,000 yards of offense last year, despite injuries and youth and playing behind bad lines. You put them all together this year with a quarterback that can also do things with his legs. If Jaden Ott is healthy, this is a really, really good running back room. And so I really like the Oklahoma room and could see them even being higher. And then my number 6 room is Minnesota. Look, I think Darius Taylor is really good. I get the 4.8 yards per carry, Trev. I talked a little bit about that before when you were frozen. I think a lot of that was coming back from some injuries he was dealing with. Offensive line had some struggles. I think he's a pretty good back. He's a productive back. He's a hammer back. And I thought he's had some really good moments in big games. I remember watching them last year, and I'm going to pull it up here real quick and just to give you the specific numbers, but I can't remember the game it was, but there was a game last year where they lost a game. How was it? Actually they won a game, but I just remember watching them in the first half of the Penn State game, and he's just a bulldozer against Penn State. And then the second half, they stopped giving him the ball, and lo and behold, Penn State comes back and wins a football game. Then I watched him against Wisconsin last year, just putting the team on his shoulders and just carrying to victory. So like the 4.5 per carry in that game isn't great, but that was a cold day. And they won 24-7 because it was an old school Big Ten football game, man. They said, hey, number 1, we're riding you, baby. We're going to go as far as you can take us in this game. And I thought he played great. And then he ran for over 100 yards against Virginia Tech in the bowl game. And this is a kid who is going into his junior season. So I think that factors into it as well. I think he's really poised for a really big breakout for Minnesota. I think he's going to be a big time player. And you mentioned the pickup of just lost it for a second there. Lost the kid from Marshall, AJ Turner. AJ Turner had 100 yards last year against Virginia Tech. So he's played against Power 5 teams. He's a really shifty back, can catch the ball in the backfield. And then, of course, Cam Davis, I think, will be kind of their third down back. Can pass block, can catch the ball in the backfield. Very underrated room. Very underrated room. I like Minnesota. Quite a bit. Number 5 for me is Georgia Tech. For all the reasons. Actually, sorry, Trev. It's not all the reasons you've said because now it's your time. See, I took his moment. Oh no!
Well,
I took his moment.
I think
so. We're finishing up with 6-10. That's my bad.
Well, and I think Trevor made a really good point. We were in our text there. Let's snake it back and forth. You guys have the same top 5.
Well,
and so why don't you go Trevor, you,
we can't really do that right so let's I can move the cards around.
Well,
you got to give me a minute to do that.
Just use Trevor's list. It's the same list.
No, but they're not in the same order, I don't think.
Oh, I thought that they were.
I don't think. Are they in the same order?
They're the exact same.
Let me see here real quick.
I think they're identical.
Vince, we still need to wrap up 6 through 10 because 1 through 5 is going to be another segment. So go ahead and do that. And I'm going to
definitely do that. Okay. So we are halfway through our best rooms from a running back standpoint. And so make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends. And of course, jump on the boards@irishbreakdown.com. Premium message board. Dominoes are falling. You got to be there if you want to see which ones are next and what that looks like. And then, of course, support our new channel, CFB Nation. There's all kinds of good stuff happening over there. And we're trying to grow it, and we're trying to talk more college football as a whole. And that is where we're doing it. So, give us a subscribe over there. Help us grow that channel. And, check out all the different content that we've got going on over there. Lots of good stuff. So make sure you check that out. So CFB Nation, as well as the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.